Okay, hello and welcome to our slightly upgraded setup and a long overdue webinar tutorial. I'm joined today by my colleague, Sarah. You know what? I've never actually pronounced your name in a public setting. Your last name, why don't you pronounce your last name so I don't butcher it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. It's Sarah Moir.
Moir, of
hmm
course. Of
Yep,
course it was, yeah,
Scottish.
what I was going to say. Um, Yes, by my colleague Sarah Moir, who heads up content and education at Hardex. So if you've read the docs or you've read an article written by us, Sarah's got her fingers all over those. So thank you for your time. And essentially today we're going to be walking through one of those articles uh, focused on webhooks. And Sarah's going to be showing us a demo integration with Amazon SageMaker. Let me just run through a couple of slides and then I will kick it over to her so we can do that. There we go. First thing I'd like to mention is if you have questions as we go along, this will be much more of a sort of like a live demo. So we do encourage you to ask questions. We're taking those questions in our webinars channel on our Slack community. So it's obviously free to join. Here's a little bit.ly if you want to click that, or you can go to hardex.com or Label Studio, labelstud.io. The links are everywhere. We plaster them all over the place. So feel free to join and then go to the webinars channel. If you have a question that comes up during the course of the webinar, we'll be asking questions throughout. Yeah, we encourage you to do that. Also, we have a new section of the website that is dedicated to upcoming webinars. So you can register for those as we populate them. As they come up through the end of 2021. We're trying to get a little ahead of the schedule. So we'll be, as the week carries on this week, hopefully filling in some of the details of some of the other upcoming webinars which you can join. We're going to have more interviews, more tutorials like this, as well as hopefully a couple of partner webinars with others in the MLOps space as well. So feel free to bookmark that page and RSVP to the ones you want. And last but not least, if you want to follow along today, a good source to follow along with is the article the aforementioned article. Here's the link. You can also find the link at labelstud.io. If you click over to blog, it's the newest one. And with that said, I'm just going to kick it right to you, Sarah, so you can take over.
Yeah, sounds great. Let me share the parts of my screen that I need to share. So like Michael said, this is going to be a live demo. So hopefully the demo gods are with me this morning. All right, excellent. So what I've already done, if you have pulled up the blog post all about this end-to-end integration, what I've already done is I've already put together our S3 bucket. So I added bird images, S3. I want to talk also, like, the whole goal of this end-to-end integration is to connect Label Studio to a SageMaker model training pipeline. We're doing semantic segmentation with this pipeline. And so we're going to use the annotation created webhook, send it through a bunch of Amazon services to get to SageMaker. And then we're going to output the results into our S3 bucket. So I've already put together this S3 bucket. We've got a place for the annotations to go to once we start making them. We've got our bird images already uploaded, and we've got some scripts ready and waiting to be run by the pipeline. And I also set up our Label Studio project, gave it a little bit of a different name than the one that we've got in the blog post, and also set up our semantic segmentation label config here. So let's go ahead and keep going. You will probably see me copy pasting things from off screen, and that's intentional because I don't want to accidentally expose any credentials or anything visible to all of you. So the first thing that we have to do after we're setting up S3 bucket is now we're configuring Amazon SageMaker. We've got to get that all set up. get that pipeline going. And in order to do that, we have to play around with IAM policies. So this first one that we're setting up is just to create a policy for the role itself. And then we're creating a role. So we create a user policy, then the user role, and now we're going to attach some role policies to the user role that gives it access to SageMaker and S3 so that it can run the pipeline, but also so that the user can access and save the output to Amazon S3. So we also want to make sure that we get the role ARN. That's the Amazon resource number for this SageMaker pipeline, so that for this role, so that we can add it to the SageMaker pipeline. And yeah, we will do that in a second, because the next thing that we're doing is creating a SageMaker pipeline. If you're following along with the blog post, there is a detailed right scroll pipeline definition. But if you copy this and pull it out into a text editor or something like that, you can take a look at the pipeline definition. It's effectively running a pre-processing script to manage the data and split it into a validate and training data set. It's going to pull the annotations and the source image files from the S3 bucket that we've set up. And then it's going to send them through the pipeline and trigger a ResNet 50 semantic segmentation model. And yeah, that's how it's all gonna go down. And so I've got off screen already this bird pipeline file saved. What I'm going to do is go through and grab that role ARN that we just created and update that pipeline. So that way we can actually have it triggering what we want it to be triggering. We're going to find all of those and replace those. Hopefully. All right. Find and replace is not cooperating with me today. So I'll have to do this manually, and then you all will just stare and watch me stare intently at my computer while I do this.
Anyway.
I know, right? Welcome to webinars where you watch me stare at my computer intently. All right, excellent. So I think I got them all. Yep. All right. So let me save that updated pipeline. Oh no. Which it doesn't want me to save because I put my pipeline in a fancy spot. Just like curse of the demo gods. But hey, you know, it's happening off screen, so you can't even tell that it's happening.
You could be telling us amazing successful things are happening behind the scenes and we believe you.
Yeah, it's really that, like, I'm editing a file that is in a location that I am running processes within. And so it's just complaining because it's like, why are you editing a file that you're doing things with? So that's all. Anyway, we're all set now. And so updated the pipeline definition with the role ARN that we've created as a result of this user role that we've set up. So now we get to set up and deploy the pipeline. And there it is. Deceptively quickly gets created. And you can also see like all of the pipelines you've created. We'll see some extra ones here because we have a bunch. You can see I've tested this out a few times. But this is the one that we just created, the Sarah Webhook Showcase with the role, Sarah SageMaker role. And that's all we had to do to set up the SageMaker pipeline. We've already put together this entire example pipeline. Of course, if you want to be doing a different type of machine learning that's not semantic image segmentation, or if you want to set that up with a different model, then you would want to customize this yourself. But it works end to end with what we've got here. The next thing that we're going to do is set up a okay, yeah, we got to the end. We're going to set up an IAM policy for the AWS Lambda function. So the Lambda function is, in this example, what's taking the output from the webhook. We're sending it this webhook from this webhook event payload from Label Studio. It's going to take that information, wait until it reaches the number of annotations required to retrain the SageMaker model, and then send that on to SageMaker model pipeline and invoke that pipeline. Okay. This is when it's like, hello, I am not that great at using the command line, but I'm learning. So again, we're creating the user policy, then we're going to create a user role, this time with a different name because it has a different purpose. Then we're going to attach another role policy to give it access to run Lambda functions. And then we're going to give it the power to invoke a SageMaker endpoint. We're going to make another policy. And then we're going to attach that policy to the user role that we just created. And now we can set up the Lambda function. We have, again, working Python code in the blog post here. In this case, it's going to wait for 16 annotations to have been created before it's going to invoke the pipeline. And then it will start executing the pipeline in Amazon SageMaker. And then it will let us know that everything worked, which is useful. So I, again, have already set up the Python script off screen. So we're just going to zip up that script and then upload that script to Lambda. And that was successful, which is always good news. And then we're going to grab the Amazon resource number and save it to as Lambda ARN so that we can reference that later. Because now, in order to talk to the AWS Lambda function from Amazon API, from Label Studio, we have an API gateway that's really just going to protect and pass through this information from Label Studio over to the Lambda function. So this is a lot of copy pasting things to get it set up. But that is the nice thing about doing this from the command line, is that it's pretty straightforward just to put these things together. So what I'm doing right now is I'm setting up the API gateway itself. I haven't created it yet. I'm about to do that right now to set it up with the Lambda function. And that's what's going on here. And so the API gateway has been successfully set up to work with the Lambda function. And now we're going to give it some more details, which worked. And now we're going to create the gateway, which worked as well. Always a good sign. And in order to get it to work with Lambda, we're going to add some permissions that let it invoke the Lambda function, and it being the API gateway. And that then becomes available at a specific URL, which we need to configure webhooks. So I'm going to grab that URL and save it for later. And now it gets even more exciting. So now we're done with the command line, basically. And we're going to go over to Label Studio and set up our cloud storage. So I'll go a little bit slower here because I know that setting up cloud storage can be a little bit taxing. So in this case, we are working with AWS S3. We can give it any sort of name that we want. And in this case, we're working off of a bucket name of Sarah Showcase Bucket and a bucket prefix of bird images. You don't want to give the trailing slash. We'll take care of that for you. My files are JPEG files, and it's in US East 2. I don't have any sort of fancy S3 endpoint set up, so I can ignore that. And then I'm going to go off screen and grab my credential details here. And these are important to set up those pre-signed URLs. So I will add this storage. LastPass is friendly. And then I'm going to sync that. So this is going to pull in those 87 JPEG files of bird images. Perfect. I'm always relieved when these things work the first time because, again, demo gods. And then we're going to go through and set up target storage as well. So again, it's in the same bucket. It's pretty easy to just do this all in the same spot. And we call that prefix annotations. It's in US East 2 in this case. And I'm going to go grab my credentials again and set that up. So we recently just updated this actually so that you could do target syncing. So rather than it going automatically over to the bucket after you create your annotations, we'll come back here and we'll sync them. So that's the cloud storage that we've set up. And now let's go ahead and add a webhook. So this is where we want to grab the payload URL from earlier. This is that gateway ID. Like we're sending the webhook directly to the API gateway. And we want it to start immediately. We're not sending any headers. That is an option that you have if you want to authenticate your webhook payload or anything like that. But we're not going to do that today. We do want to send the payload that has a lot of useful information. If you want to know exactly what's in each payload, you can come to the documentation where we've got the event reference. In this case, we will be sending the annotation created event. And so that has a payload that includes the annotation information, how many annotations have been created, as well as details about the project. And so we have this example payload that has details about what gets sent and how it might look, so that if you want to set something up based on any of these fields on your own and make it custom, you can do that. But we don't want to send this for all actions. We just want to send it when an annotation has been created. So we're going to add that webhook right now. And now we're all set up here. So let's start making some annotations. Every so often, there is a bug that I was hoping I would not run into, and of course I did. In the details. So it's really fun. And by fun, I mean frustrating. And okay, so what's happening here is that the secret access key that I've got has some special characters. And so it just does not want to work with me. So I'm going to update those credentials and then go back here and hope that it's going to work for some reason differently than it did before. All right. Let's see. Yep, it's permissions. So let me go back to my bucket. And I'm going to make sure we can access the bucket. Objects can be public. All right, we're going to do this just for today. You can all get these bird images. It's going to be great. Again, curse of the demo gods. Okay. Got the right bucket. We've got bird images.
Is the asterisk supposed to go before the dot? For the JPEG?
Nope.
Okay. That was my
It's
only.
regex. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. And yeah, successfully connected. I'm sure most of our audience here is familiar with this feeling when you think that you've set it all up correctly. And yet here you are being told that you have not.
I know it's probably very awkward, but I'm sure that this is going to end up helping somebody.
I hope so. I hope so. All right. So I'm going to update my credentials. Oops, I don't want to add storage. I want to edit the existing storage. So I'm going to get some different credentials here. And hope that that does the trick. But it does not. This is mysterious. Because that's what's worked before in the past. All right. Something else that we've recently added to the documentation is some details about IAM policies that allow a specific role to access this, but we're not using a specific role. We're using myself, and myself is superpowered. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I don't think when I did this last time, I actually gave it new credentials. I'm going to try this again. All right, everybody, cross your fingers. We still have no birds. Let's find out why we have no birds. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it doesn't like the fact that we're doing this way. My goodness. Visible characters. All right, Stack Overflow. Help us out here. Space before or after secret key. Special characters. All right. Let me take a look at my
A backsplash.
I know, right? Well, that's what I was saying before, is that there's this weird bug where if you have special characters in your access credentials, this can happen sometimes. And it's not something that Label Studio is doing. It's something happening on the Amazon side. And they have a report from like 8 years ago or something that I found, because I ran into this before. And it was talking about like that this had happened in a different like context. And it happened ages ago and they still haven't fixed it. And they're just sort of like, yeah, like hopefully.
Not a noisy enough problem, I guess.
I know, right? They're sort of like, we don't really know why this is happening. We're Amazon, we're gigantic. Thank you for your attention. So that one still had special characters. I was just hoping they would cooperate with me. All right. Here we go. We've got managed to generate some credentials, no characters at all. I mean, there are characters, they're just not special. That'd be really slick if there was a no characters at all circumstance. And I'll also make sure that this target storage is up to date too. Okay. Oh, that's so sad.
Well, it happens.
Right? Let me take a look at the previous things I've set up just to make sure I didn't lie to you guys about how to set anything up. And yeah, this all looks exactly the same. Of course, these credentials are out of date. So we're also not going to see any birds there, but
What we can do if we can't get this working live is we can figure this out and then record a second part and
That's
do a
true.
very slick transition as if this never happened. And just share with everybody the replay.
It's accurate. That's very true. Yeah, because cores is not what's happening here. This is a permissions issue, but the credentials work. And yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here.
Or we could try to, no, you know what? I'm not going to put that out yet. We'll figure out a way to bring this to a satisfying conclusion at some point.
It's true. It's true. So again, we always knew that this was a risk with the tempting the demo gods and the Amazon permissions gods. That's the real risk. And so if my beautiful bird images were to appear, we'd be able to annotate about 16 of them and get this all going. And then what we would see on the output, I can show you what I've done in the past. We would have this new output folder that would give us a pipeline output for each pipeline output that we triggered. And then we would have this trained model file available to us as a result of this pipeline run. And so each execution of the pipeline gets its own prefix in the Amazon S3 bucket so that you are able to sort of work with multiple different trained versions of your model based on how many different annotations that you've performed. You also are able to send different payloads if you want with your Amazon SageMaker pipeline. If you set that pipeline up in a slightly different way or customize your own pipeline, you can work with any one of these different webhooks or all of them if you wanted to trigger different parts of the pipeline, whether it's updating your existing model with new information, which is what we're doing today, or if you change your project labeling config, maybe you add some additional details to your labeling config, some additional granularity to the labels that you're assigning. And then you can use the project updated webhook to inform your pipeline about what it might expect differently once you update a labeling configuration. So all of that is documented and available for you here at just the webhooks documentation. And yeah, it's a bummer, of course, that this did not work live, but I'm sure you're all kind of used to it. I'll just kind of, aha, ha, ha, ha.
What?
It just takes some time. I don't understand how Amazon works. That was my clever, like, I'm going to kill some time and hope that this starts working. Here we are.
Okay, great.
So now we've got some pigeons and we can draw the pipeline. I like to hide the regions in between. And you can tell this is a little bit of a new design of the semantic segmentation here. You've got this like fancy little icon showing you that you've done a polygon annotation. And so we're going to do this 16 times. I promise I'm not going to be this detailed every time. Got a nice woodpecker here. But
So
yeah,
basically, the solution to the problem was just wait.
yeah, just wait a little bit. So
Okay.
I had to update the credentials, and then like Amazon had to believe that I'd updated them or something. Um, and so I think the first couple of times that I'd updated those credentials, it like hadn't totally, it hadn't updated to use them when it was sending. And so for whatever reason, it was still giving me the same error, even though I had made updates that meant that it should not run into that issue. So if you also run into this issue, you want to generate credentials. And that's, again, an issue where you're getting that 403 permissions error and a signature does not match error in the response. You want to go ahead and regenerate your Amazon credentials that you're using for the source and target storage. And you want to make sure that there are no special characters in your secret access key. And then go ahead and wait a little bit, update it in your source storage, and yeah, it should start working.
Go look at
It's
some birds outside.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's frustrating, I admit. But yeah, this is exactly how I got it working in the past. And like again, thank you, demo gods, for getting this to work, but also like thank you, the world of Stack Overflow, for making it possible to discover that, okay, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. This is just broken in a very weird way with a very misleading error message. So I'm going to try to do 8 of these organically, and then I'm just going to go through and create some copies. And again, that's why you should always hide your regions after you create them. If you're creating overlapping regions, we have this nice little eye icon that lets you hide your regions after you create them, so you don't have to worry about that. So we've got, this is a really great data set. So the US Fish and Wildlife Service has public domain images. So these are all bird images that were photographed in the Midwestern region of the United States. And some of them are pretty hilarious, like this guy who is just yelling about something to somebody. So I really appreciate that there's some really great public domain images out there available on Flickr and other websites that I'm then able to use
This
to
is
make
somehow
these.
very relaxing.
It's just like, yeah, you probably do not want to pay me to be your crowdsourced annotation person, because this is very imprecise labeling. And like, is the bird's body even relevant here? Like you always want to make sure that you're giving your annotators some helpful advice about how to make decisions. Because since I'm doing this for my own project, I'm just kind of sitting here and going, well, yeah, sure, this is what the bird's head is, but I'm not an ornithologist. I'm not even a amateur bird watcher. I just have friends who are, which is not the same. And so you want to make sure that if you are doing this in production, that you have some guidance provided to your annotators about like what you actually want them to be outlining. And all right, I think we've got probably at least 8 annotations here. 4, sweet. So now I'm going to do a little cheater situation and go in and make some copies so that I can artificially get to 16 without all of you watching me draw lines on birds and polygons on birds for another 10 minutes. So as all of these annotations are getting created, we are sending webhooks over to the Lambda function through the Amazon API gateway. And what that's going to do is eventually trigger the SageMaker pipeline to run. So what I also want to make sure that we do here, we go sync our target storage. So we've got those annotations sent over there. And yeah, we've got 18 tasks there. So we're going to go back to our original showcase bucket. And we're hopefully going to watch at some point as some things get created. So while we're waiting for this to happen, I don't know if we have any questions about webhooks, about the fickle nature of Amazon S3 credentials, or anything else that anyone has.
No one has asked any questions yet, but feel free to. I do know that, yeah, I mean, you're answering as many of these questions as anybody, but I know that there's always all sorts of edge cases with S3 that seem to come up. I don't know. I doubt it's specific to Label Studio, but I guess you could maybe talk a little bit about, I mean, the behavior we just witnessed, right? That's just, it just is what it is. And that's kind of expected.
Yep.
Occasionally. Okay.
Yep. And again, that's not something that like Label Studio has done something wrong, and that's why this isn't working. That's just some strange combination of like how Amazon is expecting a request to look and how requests get handled. Like, since it's happening inside the secret key, that's not something that Label Studio can go in and be like we're not going to go in and modify your secret key to escape special characters. But, and since we can't do that, that means that like the way that they get sent to Amazon doesn't always work. And again, that's an Amazon thing, not a Label Studio thing, which is frustrating, but it happens. So something that I am going to do as well is make sure that our pipeline is executing, which it's not.
Of course.
Of course, because demo gods. And so that's why we've not seen any temp files or anything get created here yet. Let me, in a different window, go poking around into Lambda and see what could be happening here. So the Lambda functions are nice because they allow you to see whether or not your Lambda function was invoked and whether or not it was invoked successfully. And our Lambda function was invoked successfully. So I think I may just need to be giving SageMaker a little bit more time to get that going. Yeah, because we got 0 errors and 100% success rate in Lambda here. Let me pull this over to my other tab. And I can show you that the webhook that we created, or sorry, not the webhook that we created, the Lambda function that we created, which has the word webhook in it, which is why I said that, was successfully invoked. And it lasted a little bit of time. And we've got, yes, success, no errors. That's a very confusing 199 axis going on there. So got one execution happening here. Let me go ahead and take a look at our pipeline execution again. And again, we've got no results there. Let's reload our S3 buckets. Yeah. We've got at least 16 annotations. Let's make sure that all of our annotations made it over. And here they are. You can tell our beautiful annotations have made it over. That was my old project. Let's go back to birds, birds, birds. Through. I was hoping it might have just taken some time to get over there. So we know that everything up until this Lambda function is working successfully. But for whatever reason, it's not working after that. I probably have some sort of typo in my pipeline execution settings. You can see some logs. That's from this morning. Making requests. These are not very helpful logs, if I'm honest. Here is a request ID. Thank you for these detailed logs, Lambda function. Because what I was hoping to see is responses that would say, fired this pipeline or have not fired this pipeline for whatever reason. And that is not the case. Waiting worked in the past, but hasn't today. I promise to all of you that I have successfully gotten this working before. So again, when the pipeline runs, then we're able to see the output in this output folder with a model. And again, with that execution ARN in the pipeline name, so that if you have the pipeline executed multiple times, then you're able to see that. So what I might do here is just going to make some more birds. And then do we do this? 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. I recommend that none of you actually train your models this way. I'm doing this so that you don't have to watch me make like 32 polygons this morning. But you definitely want some more variety in your model training than the same 8 birds with polygons drawn on them 32 times.
I have a random question. Are your
Yeah.
bird watching friends worried that they're going to be replaced by algorithms?
I think that it would actually be a net benefit for bird watchers. So one of the ways that we get bird data about bird populations is through periodic surveys by bird watchers. And those periodic surveys are done by bird watchers, and they sort of help us get a sense of how many birds of various population types are out there in the wild. And that's a very subjective sampling, because it's really just like, what are these people seeing in these specific places? So in terms of like performing bird surveys, it would actually be pretty beneficial to have algorithms be performing that activity. I think most bird watchers are not watching birds in any sort of methodical sense. They're doing it for their own purposes, and sort of like because they want to look at birds, and sometimes because they want to see a rare bird that they've not seen before. And if that's not, and so it's more about the personal pursuit.
Yeah.
But it would probably be beneficial at some point for algorithms, provided they were well trained enough to be running, say, on webcam streams of various locations, to help sort of flesh out and maybe pull in some more of the missing data that might be present in bird watching surveys that help us estimate bird populations, because bird watchers are a little bit more biased toward the novelty birds. So you don't often get like bird watching populations about like pigeons, and that sort of thing. So I'll share a link about bird watching data later in the webinars thing, because I've actually done some research into that for a presentation that I gave. Yeah, I did a presentation last year, or last year, 2020, about how missing data can bias data analysis. And as part of that, I discussed the results of this bird watching survey on bird populations and what sort of bird populations were missing from that. So let's see if look at that. See,
all we need to do
just
is chat
talk about birds,
and
then we'll take a look. So let's see what's going on in our bucket now. All right, so it's running. We've got an execution arm. It's executing, but it hasn't done everything yet. Hopefully it will make some moves in the next 7 minutes. But so what you'll see in this is, as it goes on, there are some temp files that get created. And those temporary files that get created are, again, to split the data set into a training and validation data set. And that's just the best practice for model training. And so at some point we will see a temp file get created in this bucket. And it's still just executing. And when it's completed, we will have a output folder with this execution arm right here, listed in the directory, the prefix name. I was like, what is the Amazon S3 name for directory? In the prefix, like I showed you with our other bucket over here. So we'll have an execution arm visible right there. I'm not sure what this is, but it's probably another Amazon resource name. I just never asked. Aha, so here's our temp folder that got created by the pipeline. So we can see we've got some training annotations, as well as some validation annotations. And that's been split from our original data set. So these are the source files, and then these are the result files created by Never downloaded one of those. Created by, okay, I've been refreshing too much. That's created by that pre-processing script that I mentioned that we uploaded to the script director, the script prefix of this bucket in the beginning. And that's just so that the SageMaker pipeline is pre-processing our data so that the model can make sense of it in the way that is relevant. And so this is going to continue for some time. And I wonder if it tells us anything. Yeah, it just tells us executing until it's done. And then once it's complete, again, it will give us an output folder, just like this one. And then there's a cleanup script as well that we uploaded to this script prefix. And that cleanup script is going to remove this temp file because after we've done the model training, we just want the results. We just want the trained model. If you don't want that to happen, I'm pretty sure that if you just took the cleanup file out, that it would not clean up because it wouldn't have anything to run to do the cleanup. But yeah, the demo gods have pulled through for me today. They took their sweet time, but they have pulled through for me eventually.
Yes, I might actually just have this whole thing posted because I feel like we got to a good place, and
we got everywhere we needed to be eventually.
It kind of illustrates the amount of for lack of a better word, banging your head on a wall you kind of have to do with these things.
It's true. It's true. And you'll notice that like everything that I did, and I mean, you don't typically start your labeling process and then stop as soon as you've hit the very minimum required for your model. You'll probably want to go a few more beyond that.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is not like a real world use case, real world scenario. Like you can absolutely use everything in this blog post to do things in the real world. But the way that I'm doing them here today is not how that might look. So
I'm curious though. I mean, you probably know if this is happening, but are there people setting up webcams and training, models to categorize birds?
Probably not with birds. I would be almost certain that at least someone somewhere is doing that with, say, like salmon populations, or we've got a good number of like bear webcams out there in the world when
Cool.
It's like salmon season and you're watching the bears. All right, so we can see now we've got a temp file and an output file. That means that our model has been trained, and the cleanup script is about to go do some stuff. So we're still waiting for all of the output, but we're almost there. We're in the home stretch. Once this temp file goes away, and then we just have an output file, then we'll be fully trained. Down to the wire here. This is a very suspenseful webinar today. And now we've got an output file and a model tar GZ file that we could download if we wanted to. I don't know what I would do with it because I don't have a GPU, but I'll download it just for fun. And yeah, 9:59. We made it happen, folks.
We did it.
We did it. So here we are. We've got some beautiful birds. We've got webhooks. We've got Amazon SageMaker. We've got this entire end-to-end pipeline successfully working. So,
yay!
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Stop sharing.
And to put a little button on this, if you want to or have questions about this after the fact, it just so happens that Sarah is very active in our Slack community. which you can join using this link here or on our website. And so, yeah, feel free to dip in and ask some questions. And thanks again, Sarah, for your time and for going through the demo and being patient with it. We got to good. So that's very satisfying.
Yes.
And on time too. So anyway, I should end it.
Excellent.
Thanks again, Sarah, and see you guys
Thank
next time.
you. Bye-bye.